Coming to you live from the offices of Chapter One Films in Charlotte, North Carolina, this is the 4D Podcast with your hosts, Nathanael Levinson, Greg Prinz, and Liam Maxwell. A new dimension in entertainment. This is the 4D Podcast.
Here we go.
We're so back as soon as Greg unmutes us.
Yeah,
You're unmuted. You guys can say that you're
He's
back
lying.
now.
We're back.
You can't hear me. You think you're
boys.
hearing my voice? You're not.
Who
This
do you
one's-
think you are? I am.
This one's going to be a contentious one, fellas.
When is it
There's
ever
tension
not?
in the air already.
Was last week pretty unanimous?
Well, the contention is anytime we let
Me pick
let
a movie.
Liam pick a movie, then it becomes contentious because he picks dog water movies.
Your guys' heart is just so hard. You can't feel emotion.
I don't think I'm in the same boat as Greg is
Okay.
in terms of that one.
Okay.
this movie
Anywho.
was.
See, I don't like
How do you?
that Greg has control of the soundboard because that is not what we all agree on.
I will say I saw We Live in Time on a Monday night, and I don't know why I picked this seat, but I had a seat like the second row, and when I got my ticket on Sunday, there were 0 other people in the theater, and then the next time I checked it, there was like one person in the very back corner, and then when I actually got to the movie, there was like 5 or 6 giggling schoolgirls who like talked the entire time. I could hear them like tittering in the back. And I was like,
Definitely just there for Andrew
what
Garfield.
the hell? Yeah, 100%.
Definitely there for
What
Garfield.
is the thing? So girls love this dude.
Girls love Andrew
girls
Garfield, for sure.
Love Andrew Garfield.
He's a hottie bo body.
What is?
I guess
he looks very like a normal dude to me.
I think he's a great actor.
That's it. Oh, he's an amazing actor.
Yeah,
He's an amazing
phenomenal
actor, and I think he's also like has a half rugged, like he can look
He's
somewhat
got-
rugged, but he's also super sweet.
he's
and,
got
like,
that shy
soft.
charm.
Yeah.
but doesn't look like a complete sop.
Yeah, he doesn't look like a Chad.
This movie tried though.
Well, we'll get there when we get there. Okay,
We didn't just watch one.
Give the guy some breaks.
We didn't watch just one movie.
Classic toxic masculinity, Greg.
Yeah,
that's what we
really.
call him. We call him TMG.
That's me.
Misogynist, Greg.
Give me a
strikes
protein
again.
shake and energy bar.
I knew he'd hate this movie.
I like a lot of romance movies.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think there are a lot of great ones that exist out there.
Name him.
This
Name
is not
one.
one.
Name
Name
one.
all the romance movies. If you say you claim you like romance
Before
movies,
Let me
sunrise,
get your
before
baseline.
sunset, and after sunrise. That the
that's a trilogy.
the
We count those
before
as one.
series.
That's with Ethan Hawke.
yeah, all
I
three of
haven't
those.
seen any of them.
Those
I
are the
heard
best
they're good.
romantic movies ever made. I think that The Notebook's a great romantic movie. I'm
I'm
trying
more
to
a
think
fan
of,
of rom-coms
I'm
myself.
trying
Ryan
to think of-
Gosling's a simp in that movie.
No, he's not at all.
I haven't watched it in a while.
He's not at
I'm
all.
getting
I
like
just-
a
I was just
view-
gonna say
I'm
something
gonna get a
and then-
view into both y'all's ideas of masculinity.
I was
in
just
this
gonna say
podcast.
something and
It's
see
really
what
a matter-
enlightening for me.
But he was correct me if I'm wrong. He's waiting for her forever.
Oh, well, he had not that it's the healthiest thing, but he had a girl that he was hanging out with because he was lonely. And they were both just kind of like, yeah, your husband died in the war and I don't have my girl. So let's just like hang out and bang while we
But
wait.
really, he was waiting for.
Yeah,
Rachel
like
to
he
go.
wasn't getting married and he was like hanging around.
So, simp.
No, I think that that's a beautiful thing.
Me too. Simp is not a negative connotation. I'm not saying
It kind
simp
of does have a negative
It
connotation.
does now, unfortunately, in society. But I think the idea, the heart of a simp
to
is
me-
not necessarily bad.
To me, when someone's simping, it's you're pining after a woman who will never ever return your affections, or who's like deliberately spurning your affections, and you still hang on to that, even though you know there's no hope.
That's yeah, that's delusion.
Like it's like delusional,
if that's the connotation of simp, then yes, I would agree.
or
that
like
it's bad.
or like going after a woman who has nothing going for it, like no like other than looks. Why would you ever desire this woman? That's kind of the impression. That's why I called him a simp. Is because Florence Pugh's character in this movie, I don't know why he's initially attracted to her.
very little redeeming qualities.
Like
Verging on
like
none.
oh, you ran me over in your car, ha ha ha, and then they're just dating, and I don't get. And maybe it was a short movie. And maybe they just didn't give
Thank
that
God.
enough time to actually develop because they wanted to jump
Sure,
into the
sure.
actual drama part.
Yeah.
But I feel like they jumped over the actual developing of why they got together, just fast forwarded to. And then there's one big major. Well, why don't we summarize the movie before I jump into the major plot point, which may be just an issue for me that I'm too traditionalist.
No,
I'm too trad.
I think I know you're
understand
going
this,
with this,
You know
but-
where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
So I'll give the listeners. Okay, if you're tuning in right now,
why don't I, as the neutral, as Switzerland, give the summary?
Okay, we're not at the summary yet, but yes, I'll let you give the summary. So the people watching, if you cannot comment, make sure that you are liking and subscribing to the channel. That will give you a chance to join us in the chat, and so that we can hear your thoughts. We love to hear what you guys think about things. Tell us if we're wrong. Tell us if we're being stupid. Tell us that Liam's takes are terrible.
True.
And
gonna do
and for
that.
those of you who don't
Since when does
know,
Gatorade come in a
we
square
watched
bottle?
2 movies per show in theaters this week. The last couple of weeks we watched We Live in Time with Florence Pugh and Andrew Garfield, and we also watched The Wild Robot, which is a new DreamWorks movie. So Nathaniel's going to tell us a little bit about We Live in Time, and then we'll get into our thoughts on that before we get to The Wild Robot. Go ahead, Nathaniel.
All right. Well, it was a pretty short movie. I'm not 100% sure why it was called We Live in Time, other than the fact that there certain scenes are like spliced out of order. But the basic premise of the movie is Andrew Garfield is a man named Tobias, and what's Florence Pugh's character? Anja? No, she has some weird Swedish name.
super weird.
It's like anus. No, it's A-N something. It's like
Her name didn't matter at all. She was a plank.
Okay,
Almut.
Almut.
Her name was
thank you.
Melonhead.
Almut. Oh my god.
Okay, Almut. So Almut is this world famous chef and also this world famous figure skater. And it opens with we'll get there when we get there. It opens with Tobias basically being a super sad sack in a hotel because he's trying to sign his divorce papers for his wife. Ends up having to go out to get a pen and gets hit by a car, and the person who hits him is Almut, Florence Pugh's character. And so that's kind of how they meet, and then they start dating. Eventually, they have a kid, let me back up, because again, it tells you that out of order. So I'm trying to
Yeah, the whole
my
movie
brain is
is
kind
like
of
a
like
Christopher
switching
Nolan
the
all
chronological
over the place.
how it happens and how the movie shows it to you. She has uterine cancer, and so she gets a partial hysterectomy because she wants to have a kid with Tobias, which is a pretty big plot point. And they have a kid, and then her cancer comes back, and they're like, okay, we're going to try this treatment, but she's secretly training for this crazy, basically Olympics of cooking, 'cause she's a chef, and not telling Tobias. And then Tobias finds out when she misses picking up their child from school. And it turns out that the competition is happening at the same day that they're having their wedding, which is a plot point that doesn't make sense to me because they have a kid and they've been living together for like 7 years, or they're like common law married at this point. But whatever, we'll come back to that. And so what ends up happening is Tobias and the daughter, whose name I cannot remember, go to the competition, cheer on the mom, and then the mom dies, and that's the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
And it ends with him and his kid.
Him and his kid
in the
like
garden.
making an omelet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which she did say, what's the one rule about eggs? And before she even said, I was like, crack them on a flat surface.
Boom.
Didn't
I was
know
like, hell yeah,
Yeah.
Kitchen Chemist. They've been watching Kitchen Chemist up in there. So
And I think that's good. I think I learned something from this movie, which makes it a good movie.
if you learned that from this movie, it means
Learned
you
how to
haven't been
crack
watching
an
Kitchen
egg.
Chemist, which means you need to get out right now.
So
I must have missed that
Liam,
episode.
you enjoyed this movie, which
I
is
did.
great for you. Tell
Yeah.
us some of the things. What are the great parts about this movie?
Let me start by saying it's not a great movie. It's not a movie I'm going to rewatch, right?
But movie you enjoyed.
But I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Enjoyed it.
You can have movies
That's
that you
fair.
enjoy that you're like, well, I'll never go back to it.
Yeah, I'm not going to come out here with a Liam Maxwell, one of the best romance movies I've ever seen. 'Cause It's not.
Okay.
I went into it
better.
because Greg mentioned this before. How were you not disappointed by the movie? I wasn't disappointed by the movie because it was exactly other than like the splicing of time and like the intricacies of the actual movie itself, it was what I expected it to be, which was Andrew Garfield, Florence Pugh, beautiful relationship, heartfelt, heartbreaking, and I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I think their acting carried it. I think Florence Pugh's role in it, I think I was irked by her for a lot of it, for the, shady, like prioritizing her cooking over. But I will say at the end of the day, that monologue she had about she's doing this to be remembered by her daughter, I think she was probably coming at it in not a great way, but I think her heart was in a decent place with that, which I'm sure might get some disagreements from you guys. But that kind of made me come around to Florence Pugh and did make her death impactful to me. I think if it was just like the thing we hear a lot in society where it's like worldly stuff, worldly achievements over your family, that sort of thing. I think if it went that route, I would have hated it. But I think her reasoning for it, although flawed, did like make sense to me slightly and made her death impactful to me. So that's broad strokes.
Greg, do you want to before I jump in on that point? Do you want to say how you felt about that?
Well, I just so the reasons that you said it was solid, which I respect the fact that you said it's solid and then it's not. You did the first thing you said was it's not a good movie, which
7 out of 10.
Great. Oh, well, that's pretty high. That is a pretty good movie.
It's not great though. I never said it wasn't pretty good. I said it was pretty good.
Okay, all right. So for me, it's just hard. Like, I don't think that Florence Pugh was given much to act on. She might have been emotional in those scenes, but she wasn't even crying in those scenes, if you remember correctly. She wasn't. I was waiting for it. I'm like, start to cry. Andrew Garfield's cried like 4 times in this movie. Start to cry. That's the tough part. And she's like, huh? Why? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, I don't even know if I like her as an actress. I think that it's hard to say because she was given such a weak character to act. I mean, this character was rancid. I mean, just at every level was hard to watch.
Completely disagree.
But I don't know what she did that you're like, oh.
But what about?
Great.
But I feel like that was the dynamic. That was the intentional dynamic of them. Is she was kind of a little bit more hard nosed, and he was the softie.
Right.
And
he's
he over time won her.
Boy.
He over time won her over. Like she didn't want to have kids.
Did he?
She didn't want to have kids. Oh, 100%. She didn't want to have kids.
I'm gonna lean on this.
And his unconditional and unwavering love for her said, "Okay, let's do it." She didn't want to get married.
And
Over
she
time,
she didn't get married.
She
you guys
died.
missed that part of the
she
movie?
Died.
No.
She's dead.
No, we're gonna
right?
we're gonna call a timeout.
She's dead.
We're gonna call a timeout. They were supposed to get married. He wanted to, and she said, "Oh, by the way, I went behind your back, and I've been doing this thing, lying to you, and also I'm gonna cancel the wedding because I want to do this thing, and you need to understand that." And he said, "Okay."
But my point still
And then
stands.
she's dead.
She did want to get married before she did not because of his love for her.
Okay.
The only reason they didn't get married is because of the scheduling conflict.
Why
which,
not,
again,
why not change it?
what I'm saying is I think it was flawed, but I think the fact that she wanted to do it for her daughter, who initially she never wanted to have kids in the first place, but she did because she wanted to have kids with Tobias, I think he did win her over time. And I think the dynamic of them was intentional, and I think it made sense.
Sure, the dynamic is very understandable what the movie wanted you to do, and I think you absorbed that perfectly, which is she's a little kind of rough and tumble, and then the movie wants you to think that moment is a softening moment, like, oh, understand her point of view in this. I'm sorry, I just don't think that was transferred very well to me, just because I don't know how you separate when I die, I want to look at my achievements, and then just to say, well, when I would die, I want my daughter to look at my achievements. I don't think that that's ever real. Like no human being connects with that.
Like I said,
go and
it was
be
flawed.
with your daughter and your husband. Might as well be both daughters, honestly. Go be with your daughters, because, dude, this dude had no reason to like this girl. If one of you can tell me an honest reason why he should like her,
that was one of the things I had issue with. Is I don't see at all what he saw in her. I would push back on the relationship part. Like, once the relationship is established and it moves in a certain direction, that makes sense to me. But what connected them initially, I got absolutely nothing.
I think initially it was probably the fact that he was divorced and
but I don't
lonely.
I don't see why she was dating him, because it seemed like she was just like, she didn't like him, especially after the stupid. Okay,
yeah.
So here's the only time where I was like, no, he was absolutely being a simp. The movie was wrong about this. Was when they're going to start dating, or they've gone on a couple dates, and they have the conversation about having kids. And he says, I want to have this conversation now. I want children. Mm-hmm. I didn't get to have children with my wife before she moved to Sweden or wherever the hell, and then we got divorced. I want kids. I know you said you don't want kids, so we need to talk about this now. He's like, the biological clock is ticking, and I'd rather have a hard conversation now than an explosively contentious conversation in 10 years. Mm-hmm. And she just like flips the lid at him and starts cussing him out, saying, biological clock, I'm 34. Like, if you said I'm 21, then I'd be like, yeah, biological clock's not exactly ticking, but hello? She's like, I'm not 55. I'm like, yeah, 55 is post-menopause. Like, teach me. Can we get a biologist in here? Like,
sure, I agree with that.
You need to have kids before 40, ideally, right? You can have them at between 40 and 50. You have a higher risk of there's higher risks to both the mother and the child in terms of like birth defects and things like that. And then, postmenopause, you have no babies, right? So 55, you're saying, I don't ever want to have kids. So she's totally out of line. Mm-hmm. He was as gracious as he could possibly be, and he's saying, like, hey, this is going to be a hard conversation, but let's have it out. And she just blows up and just kicks him out.
And he wrapped it up by saying...
And then he comes back and apologizes about it. I'm like, no. She was 100% in the wrong there. Why is he apologizing? That really bothered me.
You see, like, if that point in the movie, if there was that contention, and even if she was as douchey as she was in the movie, which she was
not
egregious,
at all.
She was not douchey.
She was douchey in that scene.
Yes,
probably,
that's the only one I'm talking about. Okay. Let's just isolate that.
Okay.
Even if she's as douchey as she is in that scene, if she comes back afterwards and it's just like, hey, I'm sorry, you said those things and made me feel this way, and I shouldn't have responded like that. I'm really grateful to be with you. But the fact that it was him is just like, this was like your one chance. Like, she had a layup of an opportunity to grow as a character in front of the audience to make them have any kind of sympathy for her. And they were just like, nope, he still needs to grow as a character. Like, what was her character development?
Well, she did grow as a character.
Yeah, so
she didn't want to have kids, and she openly had them.
Yeah, well, no, and it's more than that. No, it's more than that. It's more than that. No. So the first time she has the cancer, and this is where the movie being out of sequence actually does not work in its favor.
I would agree with that.
That hurt the movie in every way.
And not knowing
Can we all
how much,
agree that was not
it did really nothing for the movie.
Enjoyable? Yeah,
I think it was more. I think it was linear. It would have been better.
Yeah. And not knowing how much time has passed between events also makes it a little more difficult. Like, how long have they actually been together? Obviously, their kid is like 5 or 6. Mm-hmm. So they've been together at least that long, right? But how long were they together before they actually had the kid is completely unclear. But when she gets cancer the first time, they tell her she's got, ovarian cancer, and they say, you have 2 options. You can do a total hysterectomy, which gives you a much, much better chance of it not. No, is it called recidivism? What's it called when cancer comes back? It's not called relapse, I don't think.
No.
We can
remission. Remission is the opposite. Remission's a good thing.
Remission's good.
Anyways, there's a much lower chance of the cancer coming back if you get a total hysterectomy. Or you could do a partial hysterectomy and you can have kids, but there's a better chance that the cancer comes back. And she chooses the partial hysterectomy because she wants to have kids, even though there's a chance that the cancer will come back. And indeed it does. Mm-hmm. So that's the movie telling you that she's come around to having kids, that she's grown. It just kind of, again, because it's out of order, the impact of that is somewhat lost.
I totally agree with that.
But that was where the movie was showing you she's grown and she's come around to wanting to have kids, even at the potential cost of her own life.
Yeah.
That's where the movie is showing
I think for me, I needed to see somewhat of that demonstrated rather than it just happening, because it did just happen. All of a sudden, they just had a kid. Like, and again, it's out of order. I agree with you. The out of orderness, maybe this made it completely worse. And if it was linear, I'd be like, okay, there's the point. There's the point right there. But she just exists with a kid at some point, and later on, you find out that back when she was considering not having a kid, she could have gotten a hysterectomy and been safer, and she didn't, which shows that she was kind of open to the idea. But
not that she was kind of open to the idea, but she said, I want to have a kid.
Right.
Because otherwise she would have just done full hysterectomy.
Right. And in her initial conversation, she's like, I just don't know if that's something I want.
Right.
And then that turned into, I think it's something I want.
Exactly.
And if that's the character development, then I'm sorry. Like, you're still a melon head. Like, you still got nothing going for you. Like,
okay.
Like, because again, there's nothing else you can point to. I don't think.
I think, and again, okay,
maybe
so
I'm wrong.
Here's why I think about the movie. I think the messaging is a little confused. It was unclear to me exactly what the filmmakers were trying to convey to me, because depending on what they were trying to tell me, it was either an absolutely abysmal ending, and I'm in Greg's camp, or I'm more in Liam's camp. So I think it really depends on what was the message they were trying to give me, because it really hinges on that last big monologue when she doesn't pick up her kid, and Andrew Jones. Tobias confronts him. Tobias confronts him.
Guy from our church.
Tobias confronts him and confronts her, and she explains why she's been going behind his back and not just resting and trying to get better. And she has this whole monologue about she doesn't want her daughter to remember as just like this sick, decaying corpse, but rather to remember her as someone who accomplished something, which definitely is a little weird, because we've already established that she's a world-class chef and has won 1 million awards for that, and also at some point was a world-class figure skater, which doesn't really impact. She just is, and it means nothing. That was so weird to me. They're just like, by the way, she's a world-class figure skater. Moving on. So what does that have to do with anything? But anyways, Also, like, when the hell, if you're doing any sport at a world-class level, that's all you're doing. You're not doing world-class
Florence
chefing.
Pugh, she can do everything.
She's different though. She's different.
I guess she's built different, but
She clearly is.
But
Look
at
at the size
the
of her
end
head.
of that, at the end of that exchange, she basically like screams at Andrew Garfield, and Andrew Garfield is just, rightfully pushing back and saying, "Are we not enough for you?"
Mm-hmm.
And she's trying to explain herself, and then at the end she says, "I fucked up. I'm sorry." So if the point of the movie is that she was pursuing this thing, and now at the end she realizes that that wasn't actually going to give her fulfillment, and then later they go to her competition,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a point where all the chefs are like standing up and going somewhere, and she gives her chef hat, and the person's like, "Why are you giving me your hat?" And she's like, "Go on to like the award ceremony or whatever it is," and she goes out to be with her child.
Yeah.
So if the movie is telling me she realizes that that's what's actually important, then it was a good message. It took her too long to realize it. That's the tragedy of it. It took her too long to realize that what was really important was spending time with her family. Or the message could be, she was right to think that she needed to leave a legacy for her kid rather than spending more time with her kid before she died, right? And that would be the wrong and evil message. So it's unclear. I want to be charitable to the film and think that those moments, that's what it's telling me, but it's completely unclear because that just cuts to Andrew Garfield and the daughter making an omelet, and the movie's over. Yeah. So it's unclear to me what was the angle of that, and that to me determines whether it's a good movie or a bad movie.
That was my takeaway.
Well,
the
but-
former was my takeaway.
Right, so it depends on how you're seeing the movie, and I think the message was muddled enough that I think you could interpret it either way. And if you interpret it that way, then it's bad. If you interpret it this way, then it's good. So
I think you're giving it way too much credit.
I'm being charitable.
Yes, you are. Like, way too charitable. Because there are a lot of things in the movie you know for certain. And this is something that is like very much stretching things. I mean, let's take it into context like a few things that we know for sure. She's talked about this competition not only being grueling for herself, which is zapping time away from her daughter who needs a mother and her husband who would like a wife. So this is zapping that. So she's saying, well, I want to do this, and I know it's going to take that timeline down. But also, as I'm doing it, I'm not going to be able to do pretty much anything else. She's explaining it to her little
Sous chef,
whoever that was. And
didn't really matter.
And she's like, oh, this is going to be like after work, it's going to be like 8 hours work every day. Like, it's just going to be, so we can assume from what the movie has told us that she is spending zero time now with her family and her kids, can't even pick her daughter up from work, comes home from work, and her husband is like, babe, like, which one of these wedding invitations that I created do you like the best? Which is, I mean, sorry, it's not, if that was like the one thing, but like, they just present him time and time again as being,
well, I think that's supposed to be part of his character because he works for Weetabix, which is a British thing, but it's like
I have no idea
regular
what that is either.
unflavored cornflakes. It's like super. They even make a joke about like it keeps you normal. It's like the unflavored cornflakes of Britain.
Weird company.
It's like
to,
super.
Make
It's like
that about.
It's like the whole point is he's like a super bland milquetoast guy.
Right.
So he works for Weetabix, which is a super bland milquetoast food product.
Either way, I mean, obviously there's nothing wrong with that. It's just he had no other characteristics of him going. That whole movie was just about how she's.
I think he was great.
Right.
She was all these things.
I'm not
He
disagreeing
was.
with you that she was horrible for 90% of the movie. My point is that ending is supposed to be her realizing she's been a horrible person the whole movie.
But
Yeah,
the
there's
movie
growth.
needed to do a much better job at telling you that, because again, as somebody who tries to do stories himself, like that would be my fault if somebody came out of that movie, and I think the majority of people would. I think you would probably, even if you were pressed, admit it. That I think the majority of people probably wouldn't have come out being like, "Oh, she realized it." I think the majority of them.
But the dialogue seems to indicate that was what happened.
Yeah.
What was the dialogue?
There was
I'm
that,
sorry, I fucked up.
That scene where she
yes.
missed the pickup, like, was very explicitly stated.
Right, and then what happened after that? Because that's important. What happened?
did it?
She
She
blows up at Andrew Garfield, but then at the end of explaining why she's been doing her things, she stops and say, "I was wrong. I'm sorry."
Right. No. What happened after that?
She
And then
does
they
the
go to
competition.
the
They
competition.
cancel the wedding, and she goes on to do her competition, and he supports her, and she dies. So
Yeah.
like, just try to fashion that into her making a really good, smart decision and growing as a character. Because I don't get it. I don't think I'm
fully
being.
Get it. I think.
I don't think I'm being mean to do that. Like I think the movie has just laid out the facts, and I just laid them out to you, and I don't know what that seems so basic to me. Like, that's just what happened. I get it. But I'm with you guys. When she said, I messed up, I go, that's good. Characters mess up all the time. That makes them more relatable. I can relate to you now. And then she goes, what should we do from here? She's like, well, you better just get on your horse and follow me more because I'm just going to keep doing what I want. And I'm like,
I'm sure that was Andrew Garfield seeing how important it was to her and saying, let's take this path.
And maybe,
which again, you could disagree with that, but I think that is more so that.
And again, I think they're missing the element of him saying, all right, well, you see him throwing the wedding invitations in the trash can, so you know what his decision was, but he doesn't actually say anything of like, we'll be there for you.
I'm less.
So if you had talked to us, we wouldn't have had to sacrifice that for this. We could have been there and supported you, and we would have been okay with this. And right. I wish they had that conversation of Andrew Garfield like telling her that we would have supported you if you had just told us.
Right.
But they just kind of skipped the end. And again, I think that you got to take it together that her saying I'm sorry and then her putting her hat away and coming out to them in the audience, which again, from what's going on in the competition, it's unclear what's actually going on. They needed to explain that better. Is it the end of the competition so everyone's going home?
I'm pretty sure it's the end of the competition.
But I think they were like going, but again, it was completely unclear. And I know,
which is a problem.
I know food competition. I'm agreeing with you, Greg. I'm agreeing with you. They were not clear about this. But it seems, as I understand food competitions, I'm watching it seemed like one round was over. Either one round was over or the competition was over. They were going to the awards part. And she said, I'm going to step out of this competition now and go spend time with my family.
That's why it wasn't about the worldly achievement of like a medal, because she left before the medals were even doled out.
Right.
It was about the traits that went into, and again, I've already admitted, I think it's flawed, but it's about the traits that went into her working so hard. It was leaving that legacy, not like worldly. It was leaving the legacy of like her being strong, even amidst cancer.
I think they should have been clearer about what the message was, but I think the message was this was ultimately not worth it. It was better for her to just where she really got happiness was spending time with her family.
And she left the competition and went to ice skate with her family.
And then died.
Which is that's how I read it, is with her.
That was the impression that I got, that she stopped doing the competition because she finally sunk into her that this was more important. Now, let's table that for a second. Let's talk about the plot holes.
I'm sure there's...
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. First big one. And now this might just be a me problem. I might have just missed this point of dialogue. But, I mean, it was an hour and 48 minutes. And I don't think I wasn't paying attention at any point. I will say, because again, there were like a bunch of girls behind me in the movie theater. So I was trying, when she starts giving that speech, I was just like pissed off. When she was doing the how dare you have babies, I was just like flipping off the screen. I was like, well, sure. There were some points where I wanted to stand up and boo Florence Pugh's character, which again, I think was intentional. So, again, I'm giving the movie a lot of credit here, Nathanael. I am. I'm trying to be charitable to the movie.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
I'm trying to be optimistic about what they were trying to tell me. And again, I talked to someone else about this. I'm like, again, if their intention was that Florence Pugh was in the right, then they're terrible people and they should all be burnt at the stake. But if they weren't, which I get the impression that they weren't, then they just need to be better at telling stories. Okay. Again, they've been together for however long. They have a kid that's 6 years old. And we know they didn't adopt. We saw Florence Pugh have the baby. How the hell are they not married? Did I miss a line where she said, I don't want to get married? I feel like, did I miss something where they said why they're not married? Or is it just common in England to just live together and have children and not get married? That was very weird to me. I didn't understand that.
I don't think you missed anything.
Yeah, so they just didn't explain why they aren't married.
Mm-hmm. I think the message that the movie is sending is right on line with that. It's right on line with like, don't bother getting married. Don't bother, like, don't make your family your priority. It's really about you and your happiness, and like that looks different for everybody. So
but you have to admit that Andrew Garfield is also the primary character in this. They're of equal standing.
Absolutely not. Do you think that he has any? You really think we just called him the most milquetoast character?
I didn't.
Okay,
I did.
So you don't think?
I did not call him.
I will say he honestly doesn't have a lot of agency in this movie.
Yeah,
he's very reactive.
I mean, I think he aggressively prioritizes his family over everything,
which
I saw as an
100%.
amazing trait.
But no, I agree that is an excellent trait.
He was firm when he needed to be.
Was he?
I think he needed to be firm a couple 100%. More times, but
I agree. But he was firm at points.
It was, but I was like, yeah. When he finally pushes back on Florence Pugh at the end, I was like, finally, he's finally saying something.
And both of the times, there are 2 times that he pushes back. Both times he admits he's wrong afterwards, and neither times he was wrong.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
it's like the truth matters.
I think he's great. I think he's amazing in it. I
it's-
think he's a
literally-
portrayal
You get
of
to
a
see his
really
butt.
loving father, and I think it's great.
He
And
is.
I
He's-
see no qualms with his performance or his character.
But honestly, the way he's acting shouldn't be seen as heroic and amazing, like love to, and it does come across that way. It's like, oh my, look at how much he's just a normal, like that's how dad should act.
It definitely
The bar
feels
is pretty
there's a
low.
lot of movies where they don't act like they should
Sure,
act. That's
and-
why
and
it was refreshing.
It definitely feels like, so you know how in like action movies, the female character will just be this super hot, kind of maybe super smart, maybe not, like depends.
Damsel
but
in
just,
distress type.
falling over the main character, and you're like, I don't see the connection here. I feel like this is the reverse of that. Like Andrew Garfield has no reason to and it's like this is what. And I don't know, whoever wrote the movie, like their ideal man is like, no matter what I'm doing, no matter how bad I'm being of a human being, they're going to stand by me and support all my decisions. And he does push back, and I think he needed to push back at more points.
We've seen a movie recently where the girl was acting like that, and we were like, "What are you doing? What a silly decision you're making." What was that?
Was it one we reviewed?
Was
Old Boy?
Was it Heat? Remember we watched Heat?
Wow, that was a while ago.
That was a while ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
I can't remember.
maybe.
I
But
didn't watch Heat.
there was a girl who was just like with some guy who was just like a mobster, and he was just terrible. And I'm like, "What are you doing?"
Was
Like,
it Bad
what-
Boys?
Probably Heat then.
It was Heat. It was Heat. And
That's a great pull by you. 'Cause that was a year and a half ago.
That
we
was
watched that.
longer than that, dude. That was
Yeah.
like 3 years
Yeah, it
ago.
might
It was a random movie that me and Liam watched one time. It's just about New York mobs. I don't know.
Pacino and
Yeah.
De Niro.
It was very long and kind of mid, but there were like I'm pulling this because I do remember being outwardly frustrated at the girl for being like, she seemed very sweet, she's very pretty, and she really liked this main guy who was just a dog and he was terrible. And I'm like, you like, what are you doing? And you see that's
Yeah, and it
this is
feels
my-
like it might be an idolization of that ideal of the
Sure.
simp adjacent male who's portraying for the most part a lot of feminine characteristics, and the woman is the one taking the charge, which feels like an inversion of the traditional relationship, which is probably the Hollywood ideal. And they're probably like, well, this is what I would want in my relationship, or probably what they have in their relationships. They have their Tim Waltzes and their Doug M. Hawks,
which is
prancing
why
around
like I'm not
as
saying
they're
that
sitting around in
like
power suits and
I'm not saying the specific things that Garfield was doing were like guys shouldn't do that in any way. I'm just saying what the movie was portraying him
Greg
as.
is saying toxic masculine Greg.
Oh
TMG
my
says
God.
that men should not take baths or your balls will fall off. That's what he said. You can quote him on that.
I'm just saying that like those points that you were like, oh, he was firm. I'm sorry, like those are the points that he needed to stand up and be like, you were wrong here, and you need to see that. And I love you.
Did you not
But,
hear
like,
when I said when he apologized for the baby
Yes.
thing? He
Oh,
was
yeah.
absolutely not the one who should have
I'm
apologized.
speaking.
for that.
I'm not necessarily saying that you guys are disagreeing on these points. Maybe you're agreeing with me. I'm just expressing why I personally am like, I don't know why you would do this in a movie that's primarily about relationship, right? Like this is a romance, so there's not a whole lot else going
Yeah.
on other than like seeing how they're connecting, and you're just sitting there going, "What is going on here?
Well,
why
really-
is he with her? And why is
and-
she so nasty?"
And
the whole
I don't know
time?
why the title doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's framed like the opening scene is them finding out she has cancer for the second time, and then it kind of unfolds and shows you backwards and forwards from that point. And again, it's a bit of a jumbled mess, and I really wish they just told it more or less. You can do flashbacks, but I had more or less told it chronologically because it gets messy. Okay, second plot point: when she gets when they're talking about options for treatment for the second round of cancer, they say. They have a conversation in a parking lot. Tobias and Almut have a conversation in the parking lot as they're leaving. And she says, we could either do 12 months of miserable treatment and I might still die. Or, prognosis is like 6 months to live if you don't do treatment. I could have 6 months and we could just live it up as much as we could. Mm-hmm. And he's obviously like, well, I prefer to try everything to keep you alive. And then she's obviously going down the 6 months and then I'll just die happy, right? But she's still doing the treatment.
He's doing chemo, yeah.
Yeah, she's still doing the chemo. And the whole point of them doing the wedding thing was he says, let's do the 6 months. F it. Let's do the 6 months and at the end it'll be what it'll be. But then she's still doing the chemo. So that didn't make that. I feel like I missed something because my understanding was the 12 months with chemo, it's going to be miserable and you might still die. Or you forego the chemo and you just live out the rest of your life, maybe taking some painkillers so you control the pain. But when she's pursuing her 6 month of glory thing, she's still clearly doing the treatment. So I don't understand, like, even when he agrees to like the wedding and the 6 month thing, he's just like, let's just go for it because we know you're gonna die. She's still doing she keeps vomiting from the chemo, and I'm like, what? Why are you still doing the chemo if you've already said we're just gonna do the 6 months and then I'm gonna die? I missed something. I feel like I missed something. I misinterpreted
and I might be wrong, but I thought that they eventually decided, or a signal of her growth was that she ended up doing the chemo and wanted to stay alive as long as she could for her family, and didn't go down the 6 month route. That was my.
But when he proposes the wedding, he says, "Let's do the 6 month thing," and proposes the wedding, which again, weird. But
yeah, okay, I might have missed that, but that was how I read it. Was she did chemo and chose to live?
Right, I know she was doing chemo, but then again, I thought the whole point of them deciding to do the wedding was the 6 month no chemo. We're just going to go for it and enjoy our lives.
I was also under the impression that they were going the 6 month route. I think that's definitely how the movie communicated that, whether that was the case or not. I think we can all agree that the time changing it just made a movie that needed everything it could to be good, and it just took it and made it a lot worse.
I think it just overreached and trying to be unique. Because I think if it was a linear movie, I think there's a lot of movies out there that are like the girl has cancer.
And again, I think you can do flashbacks, but the way it did it just made it confusing.
Yeah.
It didn't actually help the narrative anymore.
That was an issue.
Unlike Memento, where it makes sense because he has amnesia and he's confused, and so the movie is unfolding, and that kind of mirrors what's going on in his psyche. There was not precluding flashbacks. So, okay. My final thought.
Okay.
For the first 2/3 of the movie, I'm sitting here thinking, because this is a pretty dramatic, like a tragic movie, like Notebook level tragic drama romance. The first 2/3 of the movie, I'm like, if you changed the soundtrack a little bit, this would be a capital C comedy.
That is something that
Now, viewer, if you have not watched the movie, let me explain some scenes in this movie, and you'll be like, yeah, you could put a laugh track behind that. Step 1, Andrew Garfield is sobbing in his bathtub, eating a cookie. He gets up, he puts his bathrobe on, he tries to sign his divorce papers. Oh no, the pen is out of ink. So he puts his shoes on, shuffles on down to the 7-Eleven or whatever, gets some pens and a Terry's chocolate orange, drops a piece of orange, goes to pick it up, and gets just creamed by a car. No, you're not understanding what I'm saying. I'm talking about like Hangover level comedy tier, like intentional gut busting laughter comedy. If you changed some of the tone of these scenes. Now, number 2, the other one that really stood out to me was when she's giving birth. They go to a gas station. She locks herself in the bathroom because she thinks she has to go to the bathroom. And she's like, oh, no, I'm having the baby. The attendant goes over, tries to open it. The key breaks off in the lock. So they're like pitifully wailing, just like throwing themselves at the door. Like, laugh out loud comedy, guys. Like,
yeah, it did
I was like,
seem
this
like
seems really out of place for what's supposed to be a serious movie. There are all these incredibly comedic things happening, and they're completely po-faced about it. It's very weird.
I thought it worked.
I think it could have been a rom-com and done much, much better, because I think that you could have had the serious tones at the end to make you care a little. Like rom-coms do that. They've all got their serious moments. So, okay, the movie itself can also be acting like she is. Okay, I've got this serious thing, but let's not be serious, for these next 6 months, and let's just enjoy it as a laughing, funny time. Whereas the movie was the slog. I mean, like it wasn't, and it didn't help. At least for me, it sounds like 1.5. You maybe agree with me, or don't agree with me. But I had no connection to those characters. I could care less what happened to her, and like more or less, I wanted Andrew Garfield to grab her and shake her and be like, dog, like we gotta sort out your priorities here, Hermione. Like, and that just never happened. Like, it just never
Classic
did.
toxic masculinity. Greg approving of domestic violence. Unbelievable.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my god.
She was insufferable in that movie. And
I agree, but I think that was the point.
Florence Pugh rules.
Oh well.
I don't know about that.
Florence Pugh rules.
I don't know about that.
She's my favorite actress of recent time, I would say.
She's terrible.
I have season tickets to Florence Pugh.
Congrats.
She's in a movie I'm watching.
Is that just because she takes her shirt off in every single movie she's in?
Movies she's in.
Yeah, just let you.
Yeah, keep watching all these terrible movies. Dune 2, Oppenheimer.
She's in Dune too.
Yeah.
She plays like
She's
a character with one line.
She's
Yeah,
a
she's not-
huge role in
Yeah,
Dune
huge
2.
role in Dune 2. She doesn't show her boobs in that
Yeah,
one.
it's
so
true. That's probably-
it's
that's-
more important than
Little Women. I keep going on. Let me just look up her IMDb. It's probably really impressive.
She just wants
Isn't
to
she
be
Elena in,
naked in every movie
Marvel?
she does,
She's
and
not
it's
naked
just
in Little Women. You guys have only seen how many Florence Pugh movies have you seen?
two
I have
Florence
no
Pugh
idea.
movies.
I don't
Well,
pay attention
she's
to
in like
people.
7 like excellent
I've
movies.
probably
so-
seen all of them, and I've just forgotten because she's that.
She's in
forgettable.
7 excellent movies, and she is probably the best actress of the last 5 years. So
Wrong.
So
That's a
obviously
very
you
bold
guys are
statement.
no, she is. I would say of like the 2020s,
2020s.
she's the
Leah
best actress.
Maxwell's hot takes.
If you could name me a better actress with a better filmography in the last 4
they're
years,
still called
please
actors.
go ahead.
If you want to be correct,
Yeah,
you
be politically
misogynist,
correct.
Pig.
It's spreading.
You don't call yeah.
You
better
can't- you
The
can't.
chauvinism
That's
is spreading.
better
can't.
actor girls.
I can't name
the last 4 years.
actors or
Emily
actresses.
Blunt is a better actor.
She hasn't been in as many good movies as Florence Pugh. You have to. I mean, you have to have both, right? You could just be in one
Be a
movie
good actor and
be a
be in a
good
good movie.
actress.
She's
Like,
been in plenty of movies. She's
Emily
fine.
Blunt?
Yeah.
name 2.
She was in.
She was in Oppenheimer, yes,
and
she
A
was.
Quiet Place, and A Quiet Place 2, and A Quiet Place Day 1.
ass.
And a Quiet Place
Day
3,
One
and a
was
Quiet Place
ass.
4, and a Quiet Place 5.
A very, very quiet time for her.
Quiet Place is alright, actually.
Yeah, I mean, anybody. I would even take Zendaya. Take Zendaya. Over
No,
her.
Zendaya.
Zendaya.
I'll take Florence Pugh over Zendaya. She's terrible.
I like Zendaya,
But
but
I think she's terrible.
I think Florence Pugh is
Zendaya can't emote. Her face is stuck. She's got the. I don't know what it is with actresses of like the last 10 years, but
Like
half
Florence
of
Pugh.
them. I know Florence Pugh. She can emote, so I'll give her credit for that. But it feels like, especially the younger actresses, their faces don't move. Like they're supposed to be these emotional scenes, and they're just like,
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, did you pre Botox your face before the shoot? Like emote, damn it!
They're mewing.
All right, so give this movie a final.
Never say that again. We edit that out.
They're mewing.
Give this movie a final rating, 1 to 10. I got to pull my ratings out to see where this falls. Nathaniel.
I'd probably give it a 5.5. It was, again, too muddled for me to get anything out of.
I'll go 7.5.
I got mixed messages.
7.5.
I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. So that's a 5.
I'm going to give it a 4.0. Just above Monkey Man, just under Kingdom of the
Oh,
Planet
it's
of
so
the
much
Apes.
better than Monkey Man.
Oh, it's so much better than Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
It's not as good
I
as
don't know
Kingdom
if
of the
I don't
Planet
know
of
if
the
it was
Apes.
good as Kingdom of the Planet of the
was
Apes.
bad.
Yeah,
it was so
not.
boring.
It was bad.
This movie wasn't bad and boring.
Not at all. Not to
It
me.
was at least
'Cause I
short.
feel
It
the
was
thing.
short.
Here's the difference. I feel emotion. I'm a man, but I also feel emotion, and that might be something.
Okay,
you
so
might
how
be
many
lacking
times
in.
did you cry in the Wild Robot?
Oh, 0.
Okay, cried twice in that movie.
Well, that's,
because I'm a man of emotion.
I was gonna say a word, but I'm not gonna say it.
You're such an Andrew Garfield. You're such a Tobias.
Really, after you got on your pedestal talking about Florence Pugh, on the,
Dude, you're out here crying.
anything
You're out
she
here crying
does.
about robots, bro.
what did you cry?
You're out here crying about goslings.
So you cried in We Live in Time.
I teared up.
What point? What point made you tear up?
When she died.
She didn't die on screen. You don't see it.
Yeah,
When
literally.
she died, and then when he was playing with his kid at the end, that was very sad because
You didn't even know she was dead. At what point did you know she was dead? When they rolled the credits?
No, when he was playing with the kid, that was the last scene.
Yeah.
Did you
That's
stick
when
around
you
for the
know she
post-credit
was
scene?
dead. No, there's no
Post-credit scene? No.
That was sad,
Post-credit scene.
dude.
Cuts
That
to the
was
graveyard.
sad.
You
A
see her hand
kid-
just come out of the ground.
A guy who's a widow. You tell me you got no sadness out of that. That's
Zero
crazy,
sadness
man.
for this guy.
I didn't feel. I will say, I
like,
didn't feel much in the way of emotion. in
I'm
that
sorry.
movie.
I feel bad for
nothing.
you guys, honestly.
I think it was because
that-
I was
You guys
still
don't-
trying to. I was trying to figure out what the movie was trying to tell me.
You guys don't experience life, man. That's crazy.
Apparently, it was telling us that we live in time, which I wasn't aware of. So,
We do live in time.
damn.
Yeah.
Well, we did watch another movie in these 2 weeks, and this movie was The Wild Robot. Would either of you like to give the synopsis, or should I?
I can do.
Not it.
I'll do
Okay.
it.
Okay. All right.
All right, so the wild robot is, I mean, it's kind of exactly, it even at one point, spoiler alert, she says, "I'm a wild robot." Just like, okay, it's a little on the nose.
Roll some
roll credits. But so it's about, it's some future Earth, and it's this island, uninhabited island, and you see that there's just like some crash boxes of robots. And some animals are playing around one and actually hit the on switch. This robot wakes up and it's like, okay, I need to find people to serve, and so is trying to serve all the animals, and obviously the animals are just running away from her. Gets
Too many details.
too many details, right? So
Broad
she ends up learning she ends up learning human language, but ends up being chased by a bear and crushes a bird's nest, and rescues an egg. The egg hatches into a goose, and so it's like her raising the goose.
Yeah.
And she befriends a fox, which is voiced by Pedro Pascal,
Yeah,
apparently, which
yeah.
I didn't recognize, but he's in literally everything,
know,
and
I
I
was
just
gonna
don't get
say
the
that.
appeal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had people say, I've had women be like, "Oh, he's so hot." I'm like, "What? Really?
He's a good
He
looking
looks
guy.
like your creepy uncle."
He's a good guy. I don't get the
Maybe it's
I
the
don't
pedo
get the, I don't
stash.
get the appeal that like
I
blew
just-
up out of nowhere.
I just
will
don't.
say that.
He looks like a relative. Like he looks like someone who comes over for Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
I don't.
He's
Anyway,
charming.
I guess.
looks specifically.
everyone
like
knows the-
Nathaniel's
the-
uncle.
I'd like to be your own.
Everyone
Cool
knows
guy.
the best thing that he's ever done was in Wonder Woman 1984, which is a terrible movie. But he puts the sunglasses on and just goes, "Let's go."
Anyways,
But yeah, so anyways, it's about
motherhood.
about finding purpose,
Yeah.
about family, about being more than you are instinctually,
Yeah.
and about soul.
Yeah.
It was a really touching movie. I love that. DreamWorks has been on fire. The Shrek guys, the guys who made Shreks 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Puss in Boots: Last Wish, banger,
Yeah.
absolute banger. And this one was also
Have there
banger.
been ones in between that I've just
I
haven't
don't
been
know.
wildly
I don't know.
unaware of?
I haven't.
They
seen
definitely
it.
have made a lot of like movies you probably forgot.
Yeah.
They made like
Sure.
I think Over the Hedge.
I liked Over the
was,
Hedge.
was
Over the
a
Hedge.
was kind of like a random obscure one.
Well, I mean, like
I enjoyed
that
that
was
one.
like that, but
That-
that,
but
was,
that's a
that was
while ago.
before
Like,
Puss
you
in
mean
Boots.
between- let me-
Yeah, I'm thinking like because I'm not like in tune to like the animated
Yeah,
movies
same.
that come out. I feel like a lot of them come out and then just like leave the theaters like pretty quickly, and I'm like I had no idea that was even in the theaters. But yeah, I mean, if when DreamWorks is on, they're on.
So How to Train Your Dragon was like their biggest hit ever, and then this has been the biggest since then. It's
Wow.
like it's rated like a 9.4, I think, on IMDb.
So let's see.
Great messaging.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
mean,
well,
can't
okay.
hate on
The
the
one
messaging.
before this one was
Great
Kung Fu
messaging.
Panda 4, which
There you
first
go.
Kung Fu Panda,
Good.
great.
Yeah.
And then every other Kung Fu Panda has been the same movie. Still good, but
But I think we could all agree that like it has like taken second fiddle to Pixar kind of over the course of time, right? Like
Right.
you hear a Pixar movie comes out, like that's a big deal, whereas DreamWorks is kind
Okay.
of
So
you might like the movies that might be funny, but they're not taking that front seat.
sure. So here are the movies that came out between Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which was December of 22, and The Wild Robot. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. I remember
Yeah,
seeing
like
the,
shit like that.
I remember seeing the trailers.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the trailers for that and being like, "Oh,
I think we saw the
brother.
trailer Little Mermaid. I think we saw that trailer. And I was like,
Trolls band together, but we can forgive them for that because that makes a crap ton of money. Okay. Orion in the Dark, I have never heard of. So
were they the Sing company? Like, remember the
Did they
Sing
do
movies? Sing 2.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
a
They
couple
do
of
that.
those.
What about like the Minions? Is that DreamWorks?
no, that's Blue Sky.
Blue Sky.
Blue Sky does. I think it's Blue Sky. Blue Sky does all the
Dang.
Despicable Me. Yeah, they did Megamind. DreamWorks did Megamind, and Blue Sky did Despicable Me. And they
Okay.
came out at the same time, which is a shame because Despicable Me 1 was good. Megamind's a better movie. Megamind is actually a great movie, and it just got totally overshadowed. Yeah, I've never heard of this Orion in the Dark thing. I don't remember seeing anything about this.
I will say, I went to this movie expecting to hate it.
Why?
Because he hates fun.
I don't like animated movies. I just don't.
That's fair.
They-
I'm not gonna hate on you for not liking it.
I will.
Like, they
How
have
dare
to
you.
be so. And I was like thinking back on it before I got into the movie. I was like, man, it's been a while since I've seen an animated movie that I've like really like been touched by. Like, we're talking like Shrek. Like, that's how long ago it's been. Maybe like Flushed
I
Away. You
am
guys
li-
remember? You guys ever Flushed Away?
Yeah.
I loved that for like some random reason.
It's,
I love
it's hard for me. It's funny. There are a couple animated movies that are like really, really excellent, but they're hard to watch because they're so ugly.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, if you had just made this animation look better, I would have loved this.
You know,
movie.
his last anime movie that like really like hit was Up for me. That
yeah.
was even that was a long time ago. But like they typically don't do it for me.
That's fair.
So
That's
this one
fair.
was pleasant.
yeah,
a pleasant
and you know,
surprise.
it is. it's tough to make a movie that's clearly designed for kids and
Right.
make it appeal to
I think
adults.
it's- yeah.
And Pixar for a while had cornered the market on that, and then they got formulaic,
Yeah.
and made Buzz Lightyear and like, let's put a gay character in a kids cartoon,
Yeah.
like.
But I think the beautiful part
Okay.
about this movie is, I mean, it's literally about motherhood,
Yeah.
which is not like for kids, even
No.
though it's obviously a movie for kids and there's things that kids enjoy in it. But I mean, mothers can get a lot out of this movie.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
bulk.
I
of
think
out of
I
this
think
movie.
I think it's great for families. I think it's a great way to introduce your kids. This is going to sound really morbid to
No,
the
we
idea
talked
of
about
death.
this. Yeah.
Sure.
Because it doesn't treat death like it doesn't exist. Because some animated movies will basically do that. Like there's no such thing as death. But you know, it treats. Looking at it from the perspective of a parent, you can see that there's a lot of opportunities to have good conversations with your kids.
For sure.
And then, going there as just a dude, I was like, well, this is a well-made, beautiful movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny and it's touching. And they didn't do a bunch of, which DreamWorks does tend towards, the scat humor, the really lowbrow humor,
Mm-hmm.
the hey, we made a penis joke, the kids won't get it, but you will humor. I thought it was a really well-made movie.
There's some
It
really
was-
great lines
yeah.
in it. Some really great lines and like some really great messaging to motherhood. Like specifically, like mothers do know what's best. Like the Gosling was trying to buck off and like was like ignoring his mother, but like the mother like stood firm and was like, "No, this is what's best for you. Like you're gonna fly." Like even though he was like jaded on the whole idea and stuff. Like there's some really good messaging from mothers. No parent has the code for what they are doing. Which was, I like the interactions between the possum mom and then the robot. 'Cause I think that was really beautiful.
And the possum mom's like clearly been around the block, and she says some like really cynical stuff, but it's also very clear that she doesn't mean it.
For sure.
Like she's just exhausted, but also she clearly like loves her kids.
Yeah, like when the one
The opening
brutally murdered.
The opening scene where she's just like,
I've got seven kids.
Yeah.
6 kids. But like right after that, the kid comes like, I didn't die.
I know.
Yay.
I was like, yeah. When that happened, I was like, that just get brutally murdered off.
When the possums were practicing dying, and like two of them were just doing these really long, dramatic death scenes, and like, have you heard of something called show and show? I lost it. I
Like,
was
hey,
dying.
I picked
so
sepsis.
funny. Oh, so funny.
Did you know that Mark Hamill was actually
Yeah.
the bear in that movie?
Yeah.
He played the
not
big.
know
He's a very good voice actor.
Yeah, he's
you
excellent.
can rarely tell that it's Mark Hamill when he's doing voice acting, which is to me the hallmark of a good voice actor is you can't tell. You have to look it up and see. Oh, it was this person.
Well, I think something again this movie did really well. Going off what Liam said, is it kind of takes like you're following two storylines, right? You're following the kid's perspective on what it's like to be kind of behind the eight ball. You know, he's a runt, and so he's got to work harder to get where he wants to go. Some of the kids are making fun of him. Some of them are encouraging. And so it's his.
Trying to swim the way sorry to interrupt you, but I'm remembering the movie and it's making me laugh because he's raised by the robot, and so the robot is like scanning, like doing all this robot stuff, and so he picks up on that because she's his mom. So he's like beep boop scanning, and it's so funny.
I would
It's
like
so
to have
funny.
some conversation with you.
But so you're following his story obviously, but the robot who at the beginning you kind of think in more utilitarian terms is just like, all right, and this is a part of motherhood, exactly what you were talking about. Like I need to be the one to tell my son what he needs to do. I need to be the one to encourage him to do these things. It is important that I'm not always his best friend, that I need to put things in his life that are going to, make it so it ends up best for him down the road.
Yeah.
So you're kind of following this track with her, and you're like, okay, is she going to do a good job? Is she going to accomplish her purpose of helping somebody out? But then you find out as it develops that you're like, oh, it's not just about those things, because as soon as he leaves, now you've lost a relationship. And she's experiencing what that feels like, and he's experiencing what that feels like, where he's like, "Oh, now I've got to fly away," and then he's like, "Oh, wait, that means that you're gonna be gone when I get back." And she's like, "Well, yeah, I'll have completed my mission, then I'll go back home." And then she kind of realizes it too, and that's where the movie has its biggest heartfelt moments, where she's done doing all the you're cheering because he's finally made it up in the air and he's left. And then she just kind of sits there and she feels the spot on her neck where he used to lay down. And at this point, she's not expressed any kind of emotion yet.
I don't know if you noticed it, but the spot where she used to lay down is she's like shiny all over, except for the spot where there's like a little splotch where it's been rubbed away.
And it's just like it's moments like that are what the movie does really well, where you don't have to be a little kid to be like that. That's just a really special moment to see that. it's just done a good job at telling the story. Like,
Yeah.
like however you want to see it. Maybe it's not a story that you like, but the story is that she's really working to find somebody, to find a purpose, right? That's what she's searching for initially. She's like, who can I help? I need to help somebody. She's an AI designed for helping. She's like, okay, I found this egg. Now motherhood is the thing. I need to help him by being a mom. And you're like, oh, this will be interesting to see if she does a good job. And she does, and you almost lose track of it too as the viewer, that you're like, oh, I forgot that she's like now, I mean, she's an advanced enough AI, I guess you presume, that she's started to develop things beyond her just AI programming. She started to develop feelings for, her son. And her son is actually, although there's a little bit of an argument, is sad that he's having to leave her. And then there's this really cool secondary thread, or I guess it might be a tertiary if you want to consider the kid 1 and her 2. But the fox is like, nobody likes the fox. Like this guy, he's just kind of all about himself, and he's explaining this is just the way it works. We find things that like we want, and she has to kind of teach him that that's not exactly the way it goes. Like there's a big storm at one point, and they all have to kind of band together and help each other, and he has to learn that.
And another moment when it's not Ginger with death is they're like digging people out of the snow, and they dig, and the fox goes down, comes back up, shakes his head, and they just cover it back up.
Yeah.
So there was one thing I really loved about this movie was there's obviously a lot of really good dialogue, but there's so much visual storytelling going on, and I think that's one of the things that animation excels in is you can be very, very. Arcane does this too. You're very deliberate with color choice, with locating things in the scene, with how things are animated in ways that are very difficult to do in a live action movie, and sometimes in a lot of cases for like expressions are just not possible to do.
Right. Well, it definitely helped that the animation in this case was beautiful.
Beautiful, yeah.
Very, very well animated.
Can I bring something over?
Yeah.
I didn't think it was great initially.
Okay.
Okay. When
I didn't think
did
it
it
was
turn around for you?
So I actually looked into this because at first, and again, it's been a long time since I've watched animated movies.
Sure.
To be fair, like Fantastic Mr. Fox, like that's a different animal
That's
all of a
stop
sudden,
motion.
That's stop
animation wise, right? So like it's been a long time before that. Like early on, I was like, I don't know if I don't know if this is good animation, but I read into it. So the beginning was heavy CGI. As the story progressed and the robot becomes more connected to wilderness, it turns more into hand-drawn animation.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Which I thought looked better. Like I didn't.
Yeah,
notice,
hand-drawn always looks better than
I didn't like
CGI.
notice certain things that I did with the CGI that I was like, that doesn't look great.
Well, I will say also that I watched this movie in 3D, which I typically I don't like. I'm not typically. I feel like it doesn't work most of the time. I think an animated movie like this might have been the perfect storm for it because it really just enhanced everything. It was like I lost track of it by the end, and I was like, it all feels very, very real. Like it just created dimension to an already very fleshed out image. But I could be, if I watched it in non 3D, I don't know, I might have had a different opinion. But I thought it was really, really pretty animation.
Yeah.
I definitely thought that helped the story.
I want to bring up another good plot point that maybe I over analyzed, but this is the parallel I draw. Is like when he literally leaves the nest, and she there's that moment where they're sitting on the rock, her and Fink, and they're basically acting like everything's fine, but you tell they're crushed. And it's like, can they have another purpose after a kid leaves the nest? Which I think there's a direct parallel to humans and parents. When that's a crazy adjustment for kids to leave the nest and go off to college, because then it's like, well, now what do I do? And she saved the animals afterwards, so it shows that she still has purpose, which parents can still have purpose after the kids are kind of growing up.
And there's even an additional layer on that is a lot of couples will, after all their kids have left the nest, will end up getting divorced.
Yeah.
Because they were just staying together for their kids.
Yep.
And then at the kids leave, they're like, well, why were we even together?
Yeah.
And that kind of happens.
Yep.
Fink's like, well, I guess I'll go my way and you'll go your way. And they're like, no. We still, first of all, we still have a relationship and we can still do things. We can still have purpose together. And that's when they go and basically save all the woodland. And Fink's arc obviously is he's learning what it means to love and be loved. And all the other animals, when they come together in the hut, they learn that we need to put aside our differences, like predator-prey thing. They skate around it a little bit, but basically,
they're
we all
for the
know
time being,
that we're eating, we eat each other, but we can be at peace at least for mutual survival. Here's something the movie didn't do that it absolutely could have done. It could have been like, those damn humans, the global warming by environment.
Yeah.
And the only indication you get of that is when they're flying and you see the Golden Gate Bridges underwater and you see skyscrapers underwater and they don't say anything about it.
Yeah.
They just move on.
Yeah.
I did think that that it was a refreshing, and again, it's probably just because Disney kind of holds the main battleground for animated movies. When I think animated movie in theater, I think I'm watching a Disney Pixar movie. So it's just kind of been commonplace to be like, all right, what kind of messaging are you putting in this one? But yeah,
the messages were really good.
Yes,
this one.
it was very much motherhood and again, not to go too much to the other movie, but the primary purpose of these characters were very much helping each other, and then through helping each other, developing a relationship through each other, through being selfless, finding purpose and also finding connection, right? So it was the fox not understanding this and going, well, I don't have any friends, because he's only out for himself. He's only out to make.
He mentions it. There's a big point about you become like your parents. Like you end up reflecting the way you were raised is generally how you end up behaving.
Right.
And we see that physically, we physically see that with Bright Bill acting like a robot.
Who's the son? Yeah.
Yeah, the son's name is Bright Bill. Bright Bill is acting like the robot because that's how he was raised. But also everything that that Fink says, he's like, well, my parents kicked me out when I was a kid. They said, they took my food, and so like the way he was taught to behave,
right.
That's how he behaves. And he's very cynical about it, but at the same time, he starts to realize like, I don't actually like living like this.
Right.
This isn't actually how I was meant to live. And I think that's a big thing, is like how were you meant to live? Everyone's kind of accepted like this is who I am and this is the role I have in nature. And then, the robot kind of shows them like, hey, there's a better way than this.
Yeah.
If we actually, love and respect each other. And then, there's a big, very understated thing, like question about consciousness, about her actually basically like having a soul.
Right, right.
Because they basically, spoiler alert, they reboot her, they capture her and reboot her at the end. And then the very end of the movie is Bright Bill finds her on the human space colony or whatever, and comes up to her, and it's clear that it's still her. And like she reboots herself. So it's clear that her self is outside of her physical body, which I think is a profound message that is not necessarily one that's held too strongly in society.
Right. They kind of they talk about it too when there's the climax of the movie is that the humans get her location. They send a collector android thing, a spaceship that comes with another droid.
It legitimately was a Sentinel from Matrix.
Yeah, it like comes down and it's like, hey, we need to bring you back and reset you. And it kind of it's in the process of doing that, I guess. And they save her from it. And then at the end, when she's like, well, I do need to go back, at some point, because they're just going to keep coming for me. So to keep you safe, I need to go. And they were like, oh, well, they'll just reset you and I'll be lost. Like, it's Bright Bill. And he's like, I'm going to be lost. Like, you're not going to have. And she's like, no, when they were doing that earlier, when they were trying to shut me down, they like my main memory, whatever. She explains it in some very robot way.
Yeah.
But she basically says, I still felt you. I could still feel all of this. Like, it's somehow there's more to me than just my. And that parallels her message that you pointed at the beginning that we are more than our just like animalistic impulse.
Our physical bodies are because she refers to it because she's a robot, she's following her programming.
Right.
So when Fink is like, oh, animals do this because it's their instinct, she's like, oh, they're following their programming.
Right.
So her whole point is you're more than just what your body is programmed to do.
Right.
Which is where soul comes into play.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And again, you're watching a DreamWorks movie that's primary characters are all animals and robots, and so you suspend the idea that these are animals and this is a robot, and you're just like, okay, let's pretend these are people. But yeah, those messages are all, I don't know, they all hit home well.
I do really love the moment where she's just been reactivated on the island, and she keeps trying to find people, and she's like, oh, I can't find anyone who speaks English. So she literally sits down for like 2 years.
Great moment.
And is processing the language and is showing you how the animals are coming by and like talking about this monster thing. And it's like decoding word by word. I thought that was a really cool scene.
It was a great way, and we've talked about this on past episodes. Like, it's like, what was the one? Maybe it was Little Mermaid, where they just like they botch, or no, it wasn't Little Mermaid. We talked about how like you could either have talking animals or like animals with like voiceovers and like how that could work. I thought that
probably was Little Mermaid.
I thought that was such a great segue to like make the animals start talking in like English that we can understand. Like I thought that was a great part.
Yeah, and it makes sense to it establishes her a little bit more too. Is we're trying to figure out what she is and who she is, and we're like, okay, we're learning more about her being essentially a protocol droid. She's designed to help people, and she just needs somebody to help. And she's like, oh, I don't know the language, I need to learn it. And so, yeah, it was on top of just being a really cool visual display of how it all goes down. It tells you a little bit more about the world, and it also establishes how the animals are going to talk. So I feel like it does so much. It's just such a powerful thing to add in the movie.
And also the way she is imitating the animals around her when she's trying to get their attention.
Yeah,
It's great.
The line the scene I thought was the most adorable was when she was building the shelter and what's his name? Gosling? No, what's his name? Bright Bill.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. That was legitimately adorable. I went like, oh.
Yeah, like him as a little bird
was very cute.
Very
super cute. He had like this little childish hiccup type voice, but most of the time it was just a tweet because he was just trying to learn to speak. And they had like the inside the shelter they had the drawings of him growing up older and older. It's just a sweet thing to see, and it seems like such a message that you'd see in everything, but you just don't a whole lot. And so
it's funny because unlike We Live in Time, I was actually able to comprehend how much time was passing.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is that I feel like that was a good filmmaking choice. Was like the Gosling getting older, but just like showing that like drawing, like immediately you understood what was happening.
It did a good job with time and with world building and with developing the characters that it had. It didn't have a whole lot to develop super deeply, but everybody that had some kind of screen time had a little bit of purpose and agency in the movie, right? Like you even had the guy that was chewing down the tree
paddler
every day, and then they're like, hey, we all just sit around and make fun of him, and then now there's purpose for that.
And the beaver guy who's just like, get out of my lawn, you kids.
And then he makes her
the leg,
the foot. Oh, it was so sweet. Yeah, no, I think it was just a really well made. And again, I get the idea that it's animated and it probably doesn't carry I don't know. I mean, like you could definitely say it's a deep message, but it's a message that kids also have to be able to watch, and so it always stays away from maybe super deep topics.
Well, that's what I appreciate about movies that are created like this, where you can look at it on the surface and just have a fun movie about a robot and some animals.
Yeah.
But then, as we've talked about it, right, there's a lot of profound things happening, way more than I would.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you anything profound that We Live in Time was telling me, other than Florence Pugh as a melon head, I guess. I don't
Yes.
I'm saying that.
He's arrived.
I'm saying that piss off Liam.
He's arrived.
Other than I guess don't work for Weetabix. I don't know. I don't know what that movie was trying to tell me.
Misogynist.
But there's
strike again.
Excuse me. I like the robot. That was a woman. Female robot.
Oh, you were attracted to it?
I didn't say that.
Is
I'm sorry. If you're not attracted to a woman, are you a misogynist?
Wow.
You've lost me completely, sir. You have
Boo
lost me
this
completely.
man.
You guys called Florence Pugh a melonhead, so I thought we were talking about physical.
I was just
looks.
saying that because of what Drake said. I don't remember thinking her head looked way big, but
It did just look like a melon in that movie. I'm sorry. It looked like a horizontal melon.
Oh yeah, when she was shaved. She had cancer, by the way.
Well, okay. Well,
So she
that
shaved her
tells
head.
you something. When
So
she
she
shaved
shaved
it,
her
you can
head.
actually see her head. It's a horizontal melon.
Unbelievable, dude.
It honestly, I
Unbelievable.
would never say that about somebody
cancer
if I
patient.
didn't feel like that person was just a silly and mean enough person to deserve it. I don't know. It's all right.
Greg's looking at this character like, I hope you got cancer. Oh wait.
Yeah. Unbelievable, dude.
Unbelievable.
He did say that. He said it.
I will say,
TMG.
I told Nathanael right off the bat, I'm like, it's not a terrible watch. It's not long.
No,
there's just nothing to get out of it.
Yeah.
Both movies were a good.
Yeah,
time.
they were. Oh
I
my
was
gosh!
very
I'm so
excited
glad that
about.
we're moving back to the 2 hour or the hour and a half to 2 hour.
40.
That's to me, unless it's a absolute masterpiece, that is the sweet spot for
Hour
me.
40. Give me an hour 40.
Yeah,
movie.
hour 40 is perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. But yeah, so I think there are a lot of deeper themes that you can sit around, especially if you're wanting to start conversations with your kids about responsibility and learning to appreciate people who are different from you.
Yeah, totally.
And there's a lot you can use. That movie can give you so many springboards to have really good conversations with your kids. And to me, that's a hallmark of a really good children's movie that kids can look at and enjoy it for what's on the surface. But then once you go a little bit past that, you see, oh, there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of depth here in a lot of different areas, and you can just kind of pick on one of those threads and go deep in that. I mean, it's a relatively simple movie, but it's presented very, very well, and it's I think it has some profound things to say about the soul and things like that. And I'm hoping this is one of the movies that's going to stick around. That in 20 years, kids will be like, hey, little Timmy, let's watch The Wild Robot.
I was reading up on like reviews of this, and it's like generational movie.
Yeah, it definitely
like, this
feels
one
like
will
that.
be remembered.
I
guess
hope
that
so.
makes sense. Yeah.
I hope so too. It's the first movie I've watched in a while that I've been like, I could go watch that again.
Yeah.
Right? And we'll definitely have to see how there's no way this movie doesn't get a sequel.
You don't think so?
I sure
Or
hope
you
it
think it
does.
will? You think it will?
Oh yeah, 100. Like
I
there's
can't imagine what the sequel would be, though. See,
Yeah,
that's the
right.
thing. I think DreamWorks, I'm not saying they don't sequelize, but I think they're a little more restrained. Like Shrek, obviously, that was something where they're like, well, we can squeeze as much as we want out of this because it's half of it is just parody, and you can do as much parody as you want.
I mean,
But
I
I
certainly-
think they've been very restrained with a lot of their other things. Like Megamind didn't get a sequel. Apparently, had a god awful TV show, but whatever.
Well, I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised,
I'm in
but-
the boat of not wanting there to be a sequel.
Yeah,
I
no,
typically think
100%.
that
Oh, totally, yeah.
It's
It was a perfect denouement. Like they wrapped up the story. The story is over. There's no in this movie. I don't see any room for a sequel.
There'll be a straight to DVD sequel.
The Wilder robot.
gosh.
Yeah.
And it's just Gene Wilder.
I guess
AI Gene
with
Wilder.
him meeting her at the very very end, it was like, oh, what happens after he meets her?
Hey-
Is a pretty I don't know. These movies they find a way. Hollywood.
Oh, well, I mean, if it makes $1 billion, then the executive is going to say we have to make another one because this one made $1 billion. Like we are actually bound by duty to make another one.
Money talks.
Yeah, money talks. Unfortunately, if you're a big company, big publicly owned company, and something makes a ton of money, you almost have a responsibility to the shareholders to try to do that again.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't want to, which
Yeah.
they will, because they're like, it made $1 billion. Of course, we're going to do another one.
It's a simple equation.
It is hard for me to think that this is nails the box. It's an amazing job. People are calling it a generational movie, and be like, oh, they're going to exercise restraint and not do a.
I would
I
hope
guess
they
I just
would,
couldn't.
but knowing they probably won't. But I mean, let's be honest. Them putting out a sequel will not ruin. So all the shitty Star Wars sequels have not ruined the original trilogy for me. I still love the original trilogy.
I would love to place a futures bet on this winning Best Animated Movie at the Oscars.
What would it be up against?
I don't know, but I can almost guarantee you it's going to win.
Oh,
Like, this
100%.
seems like the perfect. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
This is going to.
That
It's a
should
home run.
100% clean up at the Oscars.
Yeah, yeah,
So
What do you think? We Live in Time will get an Oscar
yeah. Probably Florence Pugh will.
for what? Best boobs,
Best actress,
best pregnancy,
best actress ever.
Oh my.
best actress
gosh.
giving birth on screen.
I'll say my favorite. There's another one of the lines that I had to write down. Sometimes hearts have their own conversations. I like that one.
Yeah,
You see, great movie.
and none of those characters were trans, as far as we know.
Well,
That's
the
save
robot
something for
trans
the se-
animal.
Save something for the sequel.
a transformer.
Trans
perhaps.
I did that myself. Okay.
I apologize.
Let's rate the Wild Robot, guys.
I'd give it a 9. That was an excellent movie.
7-6.
You better put it above We Live in Time. I will slap you.
I did 7-9. I just outside of an 8.
It'd be really tough for an anime movie to get above an 8 at this stage of my life.
Yeah,
Now, I'm looking forward.
That's perfectly fair.
I'm looking forard to the resurgence of
That's
me
perfectly
having
fair.
children and
I-
then like liking anime movies a lot again. But I think it's like plateaus at an 8 for animated for me.
I still, I
don't really think the anime.
I don't think growing older has much abated my enjoyment of movies like that, except for the ones that are just puerile humor. Obviously, the kids still find that funny. I no longer find that funny, so I'm less like.
I would say there's far more animated movies now that I don't find any interest in than I obviously was as a kid. But the ones that were really good that can stand the test of time, like Nathanael mentioned, I think they're there because they can appeal to both parties, right? Like a kid could
I
watch The
agree.
Wild Robot. That is one interesting thing though that we didn't really talk about. Is like we mentioned that a kid might get a kind of a grounded view of death, which is kind of silly. It might sound strange to talk about, but it is a really cool thing to
It's
take a
something
kid
you're
to the
not
movie
really
for.
getting anywhere
Yeah.
else.
But what else do you think? Like, do you think kids would like this movie? Because I liked it as an adult, but I didn't really necessarily stop and think. I think a kid would. There's
I think
enough
kids
there.
I think kids would.
Are they
Yeah,
going to get the
absolutely.
respect your mother element out of this?
They might, and they might get an appreciation for what their mom does more.
They're
Yeah.
definitely going to think the animals are cute. They're going
yeah.
to think Bright Bill's cute. Like, there's plenty of that. There's
And-
enough humor.
And I think there's power in the connection between a mother and her child that every kid will understand.
Yeah.
I think it
and
depends
resonate
what
with.
age group, because like I
Sure.
think if you're a kid who thinks they're unique
Well-
and like thinks they're an outcast, then I think you can get a lot out of this.
Good news. So there's this one guy I watched called Greg Owen, and he's got 4 kids.
Classic.
And so whenever he reviews a movie that he takes his kids to a movie, he has them review it as well.
That's funny.
And so his teenagers gave it like 8s. His like 4-year-old or his 6-year-old gave it like a 10, and then his 4-year-old didn't have to go to the bathroom and watch the whole movie. So, so we have evidence that kids also really like the movie.
Yeah.
I figured they would. All right, so next week we talked about it. So we're going to not wait 2 weeks. We had to take a week off this time, so we'll actually be having our show next week. And I think we talked about not doing 2 movies this time because we only have a week to do it. So we're just going to do 1 movie in theaters. And did we talk about doing a movie night as well? So we do 1 movie out of theaters.
That works for me.
All right. Well, what's in theaters right now that we haven't watched?
Whose turn is it to pick?
So
It's-
it would have been.
Me and Greg.
It would have been me and Nathaniel this time, so either or can pick. There's a movie called
Hereditarities?
No,
Hereditary?
it's called.
You want to watch another
Heretic.
animated movie called Hit Pig?
No.
That looks terrible. What is this?
Terrifier 3.
There's
No,
a movie
thank
called
you.
Heretic, A24.
It's a Liam Neeson movie called Absolution. Oh, that was the
Oh,
one where the 2
Heretic's
girls go
the
into
one.
the house.
2 girls go into the
like
house,
Maze
and
house.
he's like, oh, it's all an allegory about belief, and you're kind of like confused at what's going
Hugh
on.
Grant.
It's huge.
Elevation.
Grant.
Don't go down without a fight.
There's a Cillian Murphy movie called Small Things Like These.
I'm seeing that.
Conclave is with Ralph Fiennes.
Hold on. Weekend in Taipei. Luke Evans.
Well, the trailer for Best Christmas looks really good. I don't know if you guys saw it. I mean, it looks.
This is the movie we're watching. Bulbulaya 3.
What is it?
Look at this. Look at this poster.
What
It's
is
a
it?
dude with a torch jumping towards a witch crow woman with lightning.
Oh gosh, no.
Bulbulaya 3.
Oh.
It's not going to get a lot of traction.
We're gonna go now. I would probably say Heretic. That's probably the most. I would say that for my vote.
Well,
What
I have
about
no
you,
say,
Nathaniel?
so.
Just looking at these movies, I have no interest in Venom: The Last Dance.
No.
Here, I think it'll be another. I need another month before I want to watch a romance. Conclave is going to be absolute heresy. I won't watch it. Smile 2 and Terrifier 3, I just have no interest in. What's this Liam Neeson Absolution movie?
I imagine it's gonna be like every single Liam Neeson movie. It's just gonna be like Taken
An aging
12.
gangster attempts to reconnect with his children. So it's Taken reversed. He's trying to get
Man,
back
he
to
looks
his kids.
old
Yeah,
now, huh?
old as hell.
He's old as hell.
Has pretty horrible reviews.
Well, how about I'll pick the one the at-home movie, and we'll watch A Place Beyond the Pines for our at-home
Love it.
movie,
Love
and
it.
then Nathaniel can pick the in-theater one this week.
Elevation, set in a post-apocalyptic Rocky Mountains. A single father and 2 women. Nope.
Wow!
Just kidding. I'll look into,
Polygamy right off the bat.
I'll look into those 2. Those are, okay. So I'll pick between Heretic, Absolution, and Elevation. How about that?
Yeah, that's fine. And again, whatever you pick this week.
I really want to see Bulbulaya 3. Hold on, let's see the details.
What about Smile 2?
Have you seen the first?
Yeah. It's actually pretty good.
Really?
The first one's actually
Guys,
decent. It is a
hold
horror
on.
movie, though. So
Hold
I know
on.
You guys don't like that.
Listen to the synopsis of Bulbulaya 3. In the lively city of Kolkata, Ruhan, a clairvoyant with a knack for exorcisms, is actually a cunning fraudster. If anything goes wrong during the act, he hides his incompetence by blaming non-existent ghosts. When Princess Mira seeks his help to rid her family's castle of a notorious spirit, Ruhan smells an opportunity for profit. However, as he delves into the castle's dark history, things take a bizarre turn. With the help of a restoration specialist, Ruhan uncovers a diabolical scheme orchestrated by 3 mischievous priests. But just as they think they've cracked the case, so there's like 2 movies, the real horror emerges from the shadows, hiding in plain sight.
I'll quit. The
I want to
podcast
watch
if
this
we do
movie.
Bulbulaya 3.
It's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Good Lord, no, thank you.
Oh,
Never
my
mind. I
goodness.
rescind my statement. But yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
pick between those 3. I'll look into them and see which
Okay.
one piques my interest the most.
Sounds good.
Monday night, can we do a movie or
I can do Monday night.
I can do Monday
Monday
night.
night?
That's
Movie
probably
at
the
my house.
I would get off work at 8:15.
I'm fine.
So
with
after
8:30.
that, yeah, that's fine.
8:30 my house. So
Sure.
we'll watch Place Beyond the Pines the day before. On just it might be better if we schedule these things. And then we could do a movie
Figure out
theater
the
on our own.
movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you'll pick one of them. So, all right, those of you at home, we will reconvene on here in a week. And if you are out there, you've not seen Place Beyond the Pines, give it a watch so you can join us. And we will try to let you know via X, right? Do we have an X account, Nathaniel?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we really?
Yes.
I gotta follow it.
I don't use it. You gotta. If you remind me to tweet something on the X account, I will, and I can give you access to it. I don't use social media at all. Period. Ever.
Yeah, I mean, you just we'll be watching a movie in theaters.
Do you have your own X that you use?
No.
Then I can just give you the Dearly Debated X log, and you can just use that.
Okay.
We will personally reach out to every one of our subscribers, telling them
out.
what.
We'll
to
send you.
our
We'll send you
viewers.
a letter and a postcard from where we are.
Well, until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we are the Dearly Debated, and we will see you next week.